Today on the Self Smarter podcast.
Some weeks I'm the best mother in the world. Some weeks I'm the best wife in the world. Some weeks, but like, it's rare that you're those things all the time. And all together. And just giving yourself grace that you don't have to be perfect at every single thing in your life in order to be fulfilled or to be happy there, but just taking it a week or a day or whatever it looks like and concentrating on being the best in an area if you can't do it all.
Hi, we're Danl and Megan, the hosts of this conversation-centric podcast for leaders seeking to be better every day. Whether you choose to be a leader in the workplace, at home, or in your community, we believe the most effective leaders are equipped to not only be self-starters, but self-smarter. Hello and welcome to the Self Smarter podcast. I'm your host, Danl, and I'm excited to introduce and have Jordan back on the podcast to fill in for Miss Megan while she's traveling on business. Hey, Jordan.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I have been given just the best honor and privilege of being told that I was going to be filling in for Megan today. So I'm so excited to be here.
And the key being told. Yeah, we love throwing you in. You're such a you're very clutch, and so we know that you can.
We'll see.
Yeah, so what are we going to talk about today? Because it's apparently a surprise-ish to me.
Okay. Most of it's a surprise to you. So you do know this part that we sent out an anonymous form to our team, to some outsiders, friends and family, some people on social media, basically just an anonymous form saying they can ask you whatever they want.
Oh.
So truly anything. We said no question is off limits. And so that part you knew, but what you don't know is all the questions that people ask. So we are going to dive into those on this episode.
Okay. All right. Well, this sounds fun. I thought the questions were going to be provided to me.
No.
Okay. So yeah, I'm a little bit nervous.
Okay. Well, you should be, because there's some good ones on here. But what's funny is I was thinking about this, and really this is how we do any interview. So if anybody reaches out to Danl and says, can I do an interview, and sends over questions, this is exactly what we do. I'll either go into your office.
You and I, working together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'll just say, you start talking and I'll write things down. And it works out really well for us. So this is really just the listeners getting to sit in on a normal Thursday for the two of us. So
yes, and it's interesting. We just did the podcast before this was, hopefully you've had a chance to listen to it, but on the Working Genius. And we talked about that exact thing, is that I can think about things and I can think through things, but getting them actually down on paper, whereas your gift is listening and your favorite thing in the world and getting me to get something finished.
Right. So this is really just a perfect episode for us. And then I was thinking, I know our listeners probably hear us talk about the Enneagram a lot, but I'm a 1 on the Enneagram. So being able to be prepared is the best thing in the world, and being surprised is a personal nightmare. Whereas for you love being surprised and being able to be spontaneous. So this episode is really bringing out the best in us, because I get to have all the questions prepared and you get to be surprised. So it'll be good.
Well, I do like surprises, but
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll be the judge of that. Yeah.
So I'm so ready to dive in. We have so many great questions. We'll try to get through as many as we can today. And then if we want to do a part 2, we can. We'll see about that later. But before we do, we'll dive into our commercial.
All right.
Before we start, let me just say that I don't know how we'd make it a day at our company without the help of our trusty IT services partner. Moby Systems has been our IT partner for years, and they keep us connected when computers crash and networks go haywire. The team at Moby is super helpful in understanding of people who don't know what the heck to do when equipment goes south. What I know for sure is that without them, we wouldn't be able to run our business as seamlessly as we do. With Moby Systems in your corner, you have peace of mind that they keep an eye on your company and its IT assets. We're offering our listeners a huge bonus to sign up with Moby Systems. Here's the deal. Our listeners will get their first month's service absolutely free, along with additional goodies. For more information, please visit mobysystems.com. That's MOBE systems.com. And be sure to mention Self Smarter for your first month free.
So we have roughly 4 different categories. We'll have personal questions about you, some questions about parenthood, owning a business, leadership. Those are the lanes that we're going to stay in.
Okay.
Okay, so are you ready for the first question?
I am.
Okay, I'm going to start really guns blazing. I want to just get in there, just to be vulnerable.
You're going to go deep?
Just on the first one, just so people know, where we're at. And so this one's pretty tough and a little bit personal, but Someone wrote in and asked, what is your go-to Starbucks order? Your face was so scared.
I mean, I don't know if the listeners could hear my gulp. I was like, oh my gosh.
She was glaring at me like, no.
I was giving her the stink eye. If it's for the YouTube viewers, you can definitely see that. Okay, that's easy. Venti, shaken, unsweetened green tea. That's my drink. So listener, if you'd like to purchase me that's what I drink.
Yeah, it was really
every day.
My question so that I could deliver it to your front door tomorrow.
Smart.
Okay. So that was a good one, but we'll dive into some other ones now. So one person wrote in and said, what is a mantra, quote, or saying that is helping you daily right now? So words that you say to yourself every morning, words that you're living by, something along those lines.
Okay. I would say traditionally, and this has been with me for many, many years, is I try to look in the mirror each morning and say, okay, what's at least one thing we can do today that makes us better? And us, meaning me and all myself. But I really do think about each day being an opportunity to take a step forward. And again, I've not been shy about this interesting season of life that I'm in, and lots that are going on with me, both professionally and personally. So I think another version of that would be one step at a time, one day at a time, that's difficult for me. And so I think it's almost a personal challenge, because it's easy for me to think about all the things I can do in a given day to be better. Again, one of our core values here at this company, which is definitely from my heart, is, better every day. We have a Self-Smarter podcast, and I also know that it's time for me to be very intentional in this season. So one step at a time, one day at a time.
And that's true for you because you're a future thinker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm not, but you are. And so taking it one day at a time and thinking, what can I do today, as opposed to what can be done 6 months from now, is probably really grounding.
Yes, it is. Living in the present is something I'm having to really work on, and something I'm learning to do better at.
Yeah, that's great.
All
right. So one person asked, what is one thing you know now that you wish you would have known when you started DMA Solutions 18 years ago?
Oh, one thing.
Yeah, I'm sure there's
lots of things. Yeah, there's lots of things. I think probably what I would say is that people are the best part of, at least for me, people are the best part of the business, but they're also the most challenging, and you're going to get let down. And that starts with myself. I let myself down, and others can let me down as well. And the first part of this business, I didn't understand that enough or appreciate the reasons why that could be. And obviously that's when we have this podcast. We've learned a lot about, how to progress forward and as humans and be the best possible version of ourselves. And so now that, I've certainly personally committed to that, and there's days I get it really right, and there's days where I just literally fall down and again, kind of disappoint myself. But I also have the wherewithal to say, you know what? That's okay. We're gonna keep working on that, and that's where grace comes in. It's where mercy comes in for ourselves and others, and really where compassion is born. And so that's the thing I know for sure, is that I didn't realize back then that the people aspect of it, to include myself, is really where the gold is. And it's really what makes it worth it at the end of the day. If you're talking about when I started this business, I didn't realize that. I knew the work that I intended this business to do was very much needed, and very much I was on a purpose when I started this business, but I just did not fully understand. And it could have been, just really access to understanding, but then maturity too, of the critical piece that people were going to play in that.
Yeah.
And from the standpoint of understanding each other and self-awareness and understanding how other people are wired, and that it's okay for them to be different than, myself, and all the things that we talk about on this podcast. I just did not understand the significance of that back then. That if I would, I think often, what would this company be? Where would this company be if I would have known all of those things? And I can't
No, of course not.
Spend my time in the rearview mirror, but I do think about it sometimes. So I appreciate that question. That's, it's definitely one that I think about a lot.
It is true. I mean, you probably 18 years ago couldn't even see where we would be now relative to culture and better understanding ourselves.
Well, I didn't even know what culture was.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
I didn't know what it was. So I think about how far we've come, and sometimes it feels like we've been wading through quicksand, and other times, I feel like we've sprinted.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Nice.
Good question.
Right. Okay. These are
anonymous, so I can't thank anyone.
No.
Okay.
I know.
All right.
It wasn't a lie. Like, they were actually anonymous. I couldn't see who wrote it either. So that's too bad for me too. These may be a little bit more challenging.
Fun.
Just as a parent. And so kind of going down that lane, what is your number one piece of advice for working parents?
Working parents. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's grace. It's giving yourself, and I think this is where a little bit of this whole thing around work-life balance, when you're comparing your work separately to your life, I think that's not the right mindset.
Do you want to remind our listeners of what you think work-life balance is?
Well, it's absolute bullshit. We have a whole episode. We have a whole episode on it. But I think it's thinking through your ability to, just from a fundamental standpoint, not compare your work with your life. And I think as parents, it's easy to do that, especially, young parents, and you don't feel like you have it all figured out and you can't be great at everything, especially if you care about your career. And then all of a sudden this beautiful baby comes into your life and you think that you're going to have to give up something in order to be good at this other thing. And I remember thinking about that from a standpoint of, wow, like I subscribed to that until I finally realized, wait a minute, work-life balance, first of all, that's a weird comparison. And I only want to do work that supports my life. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Then there's the separation of, okay, work-life balance is not a destination that you get to one day and all of a sudden you're balanced. So again, the whole notion's just completely screwed up. But for working parents, it's, okay, take each week instead of thinking about, is it, and I tell the team this from a work perspective, and I tell people that I mentor, is this for now or forever? Yeah. And I can tell you something about parenting.
You told me that last season in my first year of marriage.
That's right. It's, is the struggle for now or forever? And I would say that to working parents, from a work perspective and from a parenting perspective, is it for now or forever? And the answer is most likely, most of the time, the struggle is, or the challenge or the opportunity is for now. Mm-hmm. And when we can think about it being that way, it's less daunting. Yeah. We spend less time future tripping and we spend more time in the present. So that's what I would say.
I can vouch for that advice. I'm not a parent yet, but I'm just a perfectionist at heart. Mm-hmm. And so you always talk about just giving yourself grace of, some weeks I'm the best CEO in the world. Some weeks I'm the best mother in the world. Some weeks I'm the best wife in the world. Some weeks, but like, it's rare that you're those things all the time. And all together, and just giving yourself grace that you don't have to be perfect at every single thing in your life in order to be fulfilled or to be happy there, but just taking it a week or a day or whatever it looks like, and concentrating on being the best in an area if you can't do it all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's always been good advice for me.
And we have 2 new babies on our way at DNA.
I know.
I cannot wait.
So
I can't wait to be able to watch those 2 develop into amazing parents. They're going to be great.
Okay, this I was really excited to ask you because I'm sure you have a story here. So Danl hosts a lot at her house, whether it's dinner parties or company parties, whatever it looks like. So someone wrote in and asked, what is the weirdest thing a guest has done at your house?
Oh, gosh. Well, wow. So
I know you're like going through the banks of like, which one do I tell?
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think that's an interesting question, asking someone who happens to have a karaoke lounge in their home.
I also feel like the person who wrote this in like may be one of those stories, like
they're seeing if I'm going to pick that one.
Them, yeah.
Oh, wow. I'll tell you this story. It's, okay. again, it's going to be hard for me to choose just one, but I'll choose one. And it was someone who I don't work with or has not worked at the company, but
Boring.
we were actually having a party for another company at our house, Drew's company party. And there were about 35 people, and we were in charge of doing the appetizers and the refreshments, drinks and what have you. And then they brought in the catered meal. So, and normally I wouldn't allow that, but with 30 plus people, it was fine to do that. And so here we are, and we had a huge spread for appetizers. People are having their drinks, and then this couple shows up a little bit late, and I don't realize what's happening, but all of a sudden I see people starting to move away almost to allow them to walk through from the front door to our kitchen. And I couldn't figure out, why do these people need all this space?
Okay.
Well, the sweet woman, she had decided that she thought because she was invited to this party that she needed to cook for all the people that might be there too. So she brought fully prepared meals that like for 30 people. So she had all of these containers. And so, I mean, I had no idea. So her husband was the one that worked at Drew's company. So somehow, lost in translation, she felt like she was so excited to be invited to her first company.
For her. She was being so nice.
I was sick for me, thinking about what in the hell are we going to do with all this food? Because I overdid it on appetizers. You know how catered events are. There's always more food, and it's a holiday party. So people, and then you have this whole meal that's like, and I had to make room for it, which I didn't have room for.
You're kidding.
So no, I had to set it all out.
What was it?
It was
like sandwiches?
I don't know. It was like chicken masala and it was Indian food. So it was this entire spread. And honestly, I really was excited about the dishes because I love it when people bring their food for us to taste and enjoy. But I would say one of the most interesting things that have ever happened to us was having a party with.
I haven't heard that story. That is so funny.
Multiple meals.
I feel terrible now that I've shown up to your house without bringing in my Tupperware for you to bring.
Your own full meal. Yeah, so I would say that was a big shocker.
Oh my god!
Yeah, but the great news is, that that everyone was able to go home.
Were people kind?
They were people. Oh, people were.
It?
Yes, and eating way beyond probably their limit that their stomachs wanted them to.
That would have been me. I would have felt so bad. I would have made myself.
Yes,
sick.
people. And not only that, everyone had food to take home for a week, so it was fun. We fed
it really worked out well.
It worked out well.
Oh my gosh! I knew there'd be a good story there. Mm-hmm. Very sweet. Man, that's so much. Okay, we'll go into a leadership question. So someone wrote in, and this is a good question. They basically asked, I'll sum it up a little bit, but what is your advice for people who don't have leaders who are self-smarter? Leaders who aren't going down the journey of becoming self-smarter, and so they can't really trust that their leader has their best interest at heart or is serving themselves or the people they're leading. What's your advice for that person?
I get it, and I get where that question's coming from. And I just, again, if you haven't listened to the previous episodes, certainly starting with why we started this podcast and then the episodes thereafter, we make no bones about it. I wasn't a self-smarter leader.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I wasn't. And people worked with me and alongside of me for probably 7-8 years where my head was just in the work. It doesn't mean that I didn't care about people. Mm-hmm. I care deeply about people, but what I was focused on, I should say, I cared about people and I wanted to be the best, but what I focused on and where my attention was on doing the best work. And I was chasing external metrics of success for this company and for others here. Mm-hmm. And so that might be where your leader is. Yeah. So I just want to start with that context. Point. Yeah. And so then when you start to think about, okay, at some point, a leader who is just not possessing the self-awareness to, if they're not bringing, improvements to the table for themselves or for the organization, if that's the case for you and you you can see that, then, it's tough. And what I would tell anyone is self-starter needs to start with you. And if you're doing the work and you are learning yourself how to be a better version of yourself just as a human, and then certainly as a leader, you're eventually probably going to want to find yourself in an environment and around other leaders that possess that same interest. And what I will say is I think that this is an evolution in the business world. I think we're in it pretty deep, and we're being forced, quite frankly, by the millennial generation, the Generation Z, that we have to continue to work on these things. And so, again, it's a kind of a tough question to answer without a little bit more context. I would invite whoever asked that question to please, let's have a discussion about it one-off, because maybe there's some things that I could help guide.
Practical things.
Practical things in terms of maybe you should lead, a session for your company, go to your leader and say, hey, I would love for all of us to take this assessment so that we can learn more. I think a perfect place to start. Maybe the Enneagram's a little too in-depth to start off with, but again, like I said earlier, we just did an episode on Working Genius, and it's a wonderful way for you to learn how people are, what they're motivated and what brings them joy, and then what frustrates them. So take a listen at that episode, and maybe that's something that you can do is leadership doesn't have to just be top down. If there's someone who has more seniority or authority, that doesn't mean you can't bring recommendations to the table. And maybe you've tried that. And if you have, again, let's talk one off. But those would be my suggestions: is don't wait around for leaders in a particular position to make, to take a step forward relative to being self-smarter. You can be the one, again, and we've said this a lot on this podcast, leadership is a decision. It should not be anointed because you have a certain title or because you have, again, a certain amount of authority in an organization. So
what's great, a good point about the Working Genius, I love the Enneagram. I use it inside and outside of the office all the time.
Right.
But what's a good point about using the Working Genius, of maybe leading a session at work about that, is it's very work related. Whereas the Enneagram, of course, that crosses lines into just your personal life, and maybe that's too much for people at that time. Whereas the Working Genius, it can be totally phrased as, I want to produce better work, and I think this will help us do that. Again, could argue that for the Enneagram, but maybe Working Genius is a better place to start in the workplace.
Yeah, and it's a lot more approachable for people who aren't necessarily
wanting to get into the deep dark.
Like how they're wired and what motivates them and their fears. That's a lot for someone to dive into. I mean, that's how we got where we are today, is we went into the deep end. But it took us a while
of course,
to really sort through that. So I appreciate the vulnerability of that question, you anonymous question asker.
Yes. Okay, someone asked, what are you most excited about in regards to the future of DMA Solutions?
Oh, that's easy. It's just this team that's running this company day to day. I mean, the fact that, I decided several years ago that it was time for the people that would help build this company to run the day to day and give them the chance to, they're already leaders, but to really take the company and apply their special gifts to it. And that does include us expanding into some adjacent areas that supports, our core business, which is fresh produce, which is good for you foods and beverages, restaurants that we deem to be, worthy of that are focused on quality food and food that is good for you, and then floral and then nonprofit organizations. So I'm excited about the direction of the company for sure. The fact that we're expanding into these adjacent areas. I'm also most excited about all of you who are leading it, and to see how incredible you all are at it. And so that just fills my tank. And to be and again, no bones about it, I didn't expect y'all to take the ball and run with it so quickly. But
leave you out.
Yeah, no, you're not leaving me out. But it is. It's time for me to figure out what exactly where I'm going to spend my time now. But that's just the greatest gift, is to think that you've built a company alongside people who want to sit in this difficult seat of running it, and to be vulnerable in that way. That is, I don't know how to explain that gift. It's a gift. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
So
we have a great team right now. So it's definitely a gift. Okay. Absolutely. This one is this or that. Which has been more difficult, raising a child or growing your own business?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think if you listen to this podcast at all, I'm very lucky parent, and that I have an incredible daughter, and I have one child, so maybe that plays into it, maybe not, but I would definitely say growing the business has been the bigger challenge. Early on, though, I'm rethinking that, as I think Mackie would have a different take on it. But early on, it was the emphasis was. I was a little bit lost as a mom. I'm a communicator. So when Mackie was old enough to ask for what she needed, things got a lot easier for me. But when we were just crying for the sake of crying, the guessing game I didn't do so great at. But I mean, again, I cherish all the moments. But once we got into a certain groove to where we could actually communicate with words, things got better for me as a parent. And then obviously making the decision to become self-smarter for the business as a leader, but then also I made that conscious decision as a mom when she was in junior high. Yeah. That really helped us navigate those times where things can really get off track between parent and child, especially those teenage years. And so
they're rough.
Yeah, when I think about the business, I mean, when you're in business 18 years, you have a lot of people, and again, the growth of the business has not necessarily been the biggest challenge because we do good work and we do it in a space where it's needed. Yeah. But navigating the people part of it that's probably been, including myself, has been the biggest challenge of.
Yeah, because you had one daughter, you've had countless employees for the last 18 years. And it makes me think of the episode that Mackie was on not too long ago, and she said she always kind of saw DMA as a sibling. And so really, you didn't get to choose between which is harder, raising a child or growing a business. You basically had two. I did. You had two babies that grew up at the same time. And I mean, Mackie and D-May are around the same age. So they are. You really got, twins, basically.
I don't know that Mackie would see it that way. But
somewhere in New York right now rolling her eyes at me. Okay. This question, someone wrote in and said, what is your advice to people advocating for a promotion and negotiating a higher salary? And don't mind me taking notes.
Okay, so
if you hear some tapping, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Okay, so they're asking like, how do you negotiate a promotion?
Yep, and higher salary.
Okay, well, let's. I think they're two separate questions in my mind, and it goes without saying that most often a promotion comes with a higher salary. So, you could be asking for one or the other, but let's just start with the promotion, because when you're asking or when you're positioning yourself for a promotion, basically you're asking for more responsibility, and in some cases you're already doing some version of that, most likely. Hopefully, if the organization, and I think that's a I've noticed throughout the years that some people feel like the promotion should come before the ability to illustrate that you can do the work, to execute. That in most organizations is not a reality. So I'm sorry if if I'm bursting anyone's bubble. That's certainly the case here at our company. And that doesn't mean that you should be able to, you should be completely doing the role without any 100% to the T in terms of all that goes into a particular position before a promotion is granted. So let's just back up. So relative to again, a promotion being, I want more responsibility. I'm doing some version of that now. I know this role comes with, these things that I'm not currently doing that I will have to do in this role. What I would say is have a clear, as much as you can, understanding of what that next position that you're wanting to be promoted to entails. And I think where we get stuck sometimes is well, I've been doing this for a while. That's just the natural step. Right. And we don't get curious about what does it mean to be in that role. So in our organization, say for instance, if you want to go from, specialist to manager, Well, the way we do it at our organization, and there's multiple levels within a specialist role, and there's multiple levels within in a manager role. And the reason we do that is to prepare people for the promotion. Our favorite thing to do in the world is to say yes to people and their growth and their development, and certainly to promote people. We have learned that we did that many, many times when someone wasn't ready.
Right.
So we get very intentional.
They were ready for the higher paycheck, or they were ready for
or
the title change.
It's interesting. Oftentimes people are more interested in the title than the pay, which is a whole nother discussion. But yeah, that is just, that's a bit foreign to me. But at the same time, I respect it. And I understand that that's what someone's motivated by. That's what they're motivated by. So let's figure out how to get them there. But what we're not going to do it is in sacrifice of that individual's readiness.
Right.
So that then they'll become unhappy. And then certainly relative to the quality of work that's necessary to produce at the level that we do for our clients. So back to the promotion, I would say definitely understand what the next role that you're being promoted to entails, and observe others in that role. Maybe, grab a coffee or spend some time and say, talk to me about what you're doing in this role. Maybe understand what was a struggle about it. And so that you can start to say, okay, I need to learn how to do that a little bit better. I don't know if your organization, you have regular meetings with your, I'm just going to say supervisor for lack of a better word, but we do that here. And so it's perfect opportunity. People at DMA have the perfect opportunity, whether it's in their one-on-ones or whether it's in their monthly meetings with Hannah, our director of people and operations, or in their development or progress plans, where they can state, I am ready for this promotion, or ask the thoughtful questions. And so what we try to do, and we don't always get it right, but we try to take the guesswork out of it.
That's what I was going to say is, because we have all those meetings, it should never be a surprise at our organization. If I were to come up to you and say, I want to be promoted to this position, that should never be a surprise, because we've had so many opportunities to check in and to work on that and to grow towards that role, that it's not out of the blue.
No, it's not in terms of your interest or your progress towards, but what does need to be intentional, and this is what I'll tell, I want to make sure that I'm making this point, is that at some point after you've done the fact finding, so I think curiosity, fact finding, the research, observation, and then almost the gap analysis of, okay, I'm ready to do this part of the job, but I really need to learn more about, you fill in the blank. In pursuit of that, at some point, you need to be intentional, and you need to ask for what you want, and you need to have, in my opinion, a case for it. And it's, here's why I believe I'm ready for this role. And you need to be in a position to accept the answer of, all right, let's do this. Yeah. But I will tell you, without a doubt, 99% of the time, the timing is not going to line up exactly right. And that goes both ways, meaning timing may come to you, or the company's coming to you and say, you've earned this promotion, but the individual is just still like, I don't know that I'm ready for that. I don't know that I'm ready for that. Okay, there's that version of it. And then there's the version of the individual has exhibited and their abilities to, or their interest and abilities to a certain degree to get promoted, but maybe it's not the exact right time for the company. And in those instances, you need to embrace patience.
I was going to say, that's where culture comes into play, of having the right people on your team that are okay with understanding that maybe not the best time for the business right now, and discussing that of when will be the best time, but not just completely giving up and throwing up your hands.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with asking for a time frame. And I love that you brought up culture. That's when you have a healthy culture, because if culture is the collection of our behaviors, then when the answer is not an immediate yes, someone doesn't fall apart and crumble because they didn't get exactly what they asked for in that exact moment. Yeah. But at the same time, a company that has a strong culture is finding ways for people to progress. And finding ways for people to put themselves in a position. But what ends up happening is sometimes the business just isn't there. And what that means is maybe the work just doesn't exist. So I'm going to give a very specific breakdown and example. But if you are in a specialist role at DMA, and in order to get to manager, you need to have touched 3 website projects, over the course of your specialist. Well, if we just didn't have that work, we've either got to make a concession that, in lieu of that, they've been able to do these other things, or we can say, hey, we have a website that we're about to close in a month. Let's get you on that project, and then let's have this discussion again in 45 days. There's not a hard, fast way, I don't believe. Now, maybe in some big corporations, there's a process for exactly how to get promoted. Sure. I just have never seen that or don't believe that that's maybe the reality the reality for most companies. So again, what I would recommend that you do relative to promotion is understand the role. Well, first of all, be able to articulate how you've mastered the role you're in. Be able to understand what in the next role that you're already doing, and kind of almost do the gap analysis between what you're already doing in that next role, but then also what you need to still learn and what you're willing to do, and then make the intention. Yeah. And that's usually the way that I receive that in a winning way. When I know someone has the right mindset, is their intention is, I'm ready for more responsibility and I'm committed, and being able to articulate that. And so that would be my advice. Now, money to me is something else, because sometimes you want or more compensation, I guess, is what we're talking about here. I would assume a promotion would come with that. In most organizations, that's true. Relative to just separating the two, relative to asking for a pay raise, I think that comes down to basically the value.
You always say this part's easy.
Yeah, I think it's the easiest thing in the world.
Most people don't. Most people get the shakes thinking about it, but you're always like, no, that's easy. Come talk to me about it. It's black and white.
It is very black and white. The money discussion, when people get their mindset around it, because it all comes down to value. It all comes down to value, and then truly understanding the position of the company. Now, you may work at a company where they don't share any of that. That's not the case here at DMA. We're very transparent about where we stand as a company. And so, and again, we also have a structure to where compensation and quote unquote raises are, they're not necessarily this vague thing, that we try to make them we try to, again, make them pretty clear as we possibly can. So I think, again, asking for more money is really being able to illustrate why it's warranted. And there's nothing wrong with asking for something that is warranted, but you need to be in a mindset of getting the answer of, there's 3 answers you're going to get. Yes, of course. Maybe, but not now, or no. And I think you have to think through, how am I going to hear all 3 of those answers? And how am I going to respond to those answers? And, hopefully you're at a company to where if the answer has to be maybe, hopefully, or no, I hope that the leadership at that company is able to articulate why that is. Yeah. And so that's the big thing, is, am I ready for any one of these answers? Because if I'm going in and asking for more money and I am only going to accept yes, I don't know that that's going to present the most healthy outcome. And, again, we have had so many of these scenarios through the years, and why I oversimplify it and say asking for money is the easiest thing in the world, but being able to articulate why is where people really, they miss the opportunity. Yeah, they miss the opportunity. And I'll tell you an example. I had someone come in, they'd been at the company 6 months. It was their first job, and came in and asked for more money. I said, okay. They were doing well in their job. I said, okay, let's talk about that. Tell me why it is. And I was expecting there would be at least a one,
if they were coming to you 6 months in, they clearly had an argument built up.
Yeah. And what the argument was I got a new apartment and my rent and utilities are more than I thought.
Yeah. Feel that.
So that's why you need more money, and again, I don't know, I probably asked for things when I was 22, 23 years old without thinking things through. But at the same time, an organization has to be benefiting at the same time that the individual there's a give and take. Sometimes it's a slight out of alignment, but most of the time they need to be in sync. Like the individual needs to be performing as well as the organization. And so I think that's where people get messed up relative to where the money discussions is. They think about it relative to dollars, and what they need to think about it is relative to value. And having multiple options for the person on the decision-making side of the desk to think through. Yeah. Like, here's where I'd like to get to.
Right.
How can we get there?
Right.
What do I need to do?
This dollar amount, and the answer is yes or no, and that leaves the other person on the other end of, well, it's no, so I guess
that's
we're
right.
done here.
It's an absolute versus I would like to make more money here. Tell me what I can do. Here are my ideas.
Right.
I know the company needs this. I hear this. Here are my ideas. I'd like the opportunity to contribute so that I can be considered for an increase in pay. And so, again, I think it comes down to thinking beyond the dollars and giving the decision maker or makers flexibility in relative to being able to see that you've thought beyond the dollar signs.
Yeah.
I think and again, I didn't always get that right. And I'm giving this advice relative on the things that I got wrong, because I have been the person that went in and said, I want more money because I do these 3 things.
Yeah.
I didn't give the person on the other side the opportunity to tell me how I could get there.
And I haven't been on the other side necessarily, but I can't imagine how much more well received it would be if, like, here's what I want to contribute. Here's how I think I can contribute. Here's what I want to do to make the organization better. Let's talk about money, as opposed to like, I want this dollar amount. Like, correct. I just have to imagine that the people who are listening to this, that's great advice of even just approaching it in a more self-smarter way than coming in and saying, this is what I want, this is what I demand.
Absolutely. And so I think, again, it comes down to values. It comes down value that you're contributing to the organization. It comes down to efficiencies that I've been able to create. I've been able to create efficiencies so that I have more time to do these other things that would warrant an increase in pay, because I've created value for the organization. Right. And so being able to understand and articulate that is very important, especially as you get further into an organization. I hate the word up in an organization, but into an organization with tenure and experience. I think it's important to be able to understand that. And when you aren't clear about it, ask. Yeah. Ask, the folks of the organization that can tell you what aspects of your work is basically linchpin work. To borrow from Seth Godin, a linchpin is someone who does work at such a level that the organization, even in their darkest hours, can't imagine losing.
Right.
So that also plays into this question too, is, man, do yourself a favor and either listen to the book or read the book Linchpin, because linchpins don't have a problem getting more money or getting promoted.
Yeah.
Because they bring such, clear value to the organization in a number of ways, but then they also know how to basically present that type of question or be able to tee up something. I wouldn't call that an exception, but be able to put them in a position for the organization to see them in, a different light.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice.
I know that was a loaded one.
Clearly, Danl feels very passionately about that one. So.
Well, because I want people to, I want people to grow personally, but I also, I want people to grow financially too. Like, that's very important. And I want to help people be able to do that in a more effective way. Right. Certainly it took me years to figure that out. Yeah. So.
No, I think that's great. Okay. We probably have time for just a few more. Okay. What is one thing that you would tell your younger self to prepare for where you are today? So similar to the work question of, if you could go back and tell yourself before you started DMA, but this is just in general to prepare for the woman you are today.
Yeah, I would get started a hell of a lot earlier on knowing who I am and knowing and knowing what my strengths are and not just letting my path or other people or the way I've gotten to a certain point determine really how I'm built and what motivates me and what my desires are, and so that I could understand how I can bring my best self into the workplace, but certainly into any relationship. I wish I could know that much earlier in my life. I think it wouldn't have eliminated heartache.
Of course.
At all. And, I've seen great success in my career and in my, in my life, but I wish I would have known that piece sooner, because it would have helped me through some unnecessarily dark times, and it would have given me greater empathy for others. And I'm an empathetic person, but when I don't fully understand how someone else is motivated or the way that they see the world, I'm not going to be the best at whatever my relationship is in, whether it's, being a CEO or being a friend or, a family member, etc. So I would say definitely that.
Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, this one, I know you have an answer for. What would you consider to be a benchmark of success for your company?
Oh, people's progress. I mean, people progressing first and foremost as individuals. And we see it all the time around here, that the self-awareness work is paying off for our company. We see it each and every day. The other thing that we see is, that I love to see is people progressing in their personal lives. And that's whether they're, continuing to work here when they're married, when they're having children, new homes, even moving out of their parents' house or getting their own cars. And I know but they're markers that matter to people. And when I think that this organization, that they're able to work here, they're able to grow in every sense of the way, but then they're also able to, progress in their lives. Yeah. There's nothing that feels better to me than to see that firsthand. And there's no greater mark of success. And again, I spent the first 8 years of running this company looking at external markers, but now I'm at year 18. Those are the greatest markers of success. Now, definitely the results that we produce on behalf of the brands that we work with and the amazing, performance metrics that we're able to produce at this company. But to me, that should be a given. Yeah. If you're doing great work and you're committed to doing great work and you're committed to having a culture and an environment where we're fostering, that type of performance, then it's easy for me to now at this stage look at what really, really matters. And it's that people who work at DMA Solutions are able to be a better version of themselves when they're in their lane of just able to expose their strengths, and quite frankly, when they stumble.
Mm-hmm. And I can say to the listeners that she walks the walk on that one. I mean, you always talk about wanting, you want for us to work in a workplace that supports our life. It's not separate from our life. It supports our life. Right. And we had milestone parties where we celebrated my husband and I getting our first house and getting married. And we're about to have one for some new moms in the organization. Right. And so not only just that it supports our life, but then we celebrate those together and we get to cheer each other on is huge. Yeah. Really special.
I want us to do great work here, and I want us to do life together. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's happening.
Good.
Okay, let's do two more.
All right.
One, second to last is, we'll go back to parenthood. If you could go back in time, what is one thing you would do differently as a young parent?
I don't know if it's do differently, but I know one thing I would be a lot more conscious of is patience. Mm-hmm. I think back on my young parenting days, and I was always, and I guess it's just natural as a 7 and a future thinker. You mentioned that at the beginning of the episode. I was always anticipating in the next phase. Mm-hmm. So crawling, walking, oh gosh, when in the hell are we going to get out of this temper tantrum phase? Yeah. Like I would, and again, I'm having to learn this in my 50s, but being a lot more present in that moment. And what I mean by presence is not necessarily, I don't feel like, and I think Mackie would tell you the same thing, that there was a huge deficit of time that we spent. And I've always been a working mom and a traveling mom, but I don't feel like there was a huge deficit in our relationship relative to time I was around or time that I wasn't. But in those moments when I was spending time with her, I think being present and just being okay that, this is a beautiful tantrum that she's throwing or fit. This is beautiful, or it's beautiful that she's, crawling around. And I don't think that I was able to understand the significance of that. And so I try not to give a lot of unsolicited advice to definitely around parenting.
Someone else.
I know. Parenting or marriage or anything like that. But that's what I would tell someone that I care deeply about or that asked me specifically, is to just relax and take this moment in, because it's just as precious as the other moments that you may be looking forward to. Yeah. That's what I would say.
Listening to a podcast the other day, and it was a girl, she's a 7 on the Enneagram. And she said that she Googled, which just made me laugh. She Googled what to do with an 8-week-old baby, because she was like, surely we should be playing games by now, or shooting hoops. My gosh. And she Googled what to do with an 8-month-old baby, and Google was like, sleep, do nothing. And she was like, oh. And so I'm sure a lot of people can relate with that advice.
I totally can. So yeah, that's the one thing I would do.
Okay. Last question. Very important question.
Okay.
I'm sure you have an answer. In your opinion, what is the best kitchen tool?
Easy, wine opener.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You have so many. We're over at Danl's all the time, and I don't even know what half the stuff in your kitchen does, but wine opener is still number one answer.
Well, yes. Yeah, I would say wine opener.
The best is, so we have Instagram days where we do a bunch of food photography at your house, and Jesse was cutting an onion one time, and you came running out of your room, and you were like, Jesse, hold on. And you went and got her these onion cutting goggles.
I did.
You use those?
Yes,
they super
work.
Cute, you guys. Everyone should get a pair.
Hey, they're cute. But... They work.
Yeah.
They work. And I think too, it's the years of entertaining. So a lot of that stuff, gifts from people. And, I've been told that I'm difficult to buy for, which I think I don't think that that's true. I think I'm super easy to buy for, but especially, the kitchen is definitely, but if I'm being serious outside of my daily use of kitchen tools, I would definitely say good knives.
Oh yeah. For sure. You got me one for my wedding, and I use it every single night.
Good.
Perfect. Okay. So I think we need to start wrapping it up, but I wanted to read one more quote, I guess, not question, but someone wrote in and said, no question, just a thanks to you and Meg for putting together an amazing podcast that stares into the depths of my soul every week.
Oh, wow. Wow. That means a lot.
Yes. I think people are so appreciative of what you guys are doing, and this is just a great episode where they get to hear maybe a little bit more personal side of it. So I'm excited that we got to do this.
Well, good. Well, thanks for having the idea.
Anytime. Okay, so I know I'm the fill-in. So do you want to do a music moment?
Honored enough to have one? Absolutely. So our music moments are all over the place, and you know this because you get surprised by them quite frequently, what we decide to talk about. But one of our favorite topics is karaoke. So what I want to know is first of all, I would ask that you share your love for karaoke and how it happens in your household, and how it just kind of, again, when you came into our organization, it was such a joy for you to know that you would be spending time in a home that had a karaoke lounge,
and a dance
stage, because Jordan is a dancer as well. So talk to us about your love for karaoke and what your go-to songs are.
Okay. Danl thinks it's so funny because I don't know where we got it. Someone got my husband and I a karaoke microphone, and during COVID, we just had nothing else to do. And so we would just sit on the couch, and it'd be Rob's turn to sing, and then it'd be my turn to sing. And then we'd just for hours, and we're not performing for anybody. If Rob's singing, I'm on my phone, and he's performing for no one. But we had a great time doing it. Also, what's funny, before I answer my favorite song, is I have to give a precursor that Rob, my husband, has karaoke'd with Danl multiple times.
Yes.
And he takes it pretty seriously. You don't know this, but he has a playlist on his phone. So like if we're driving down the street and we hear a song, he will add it to the like next time I'm at Danl singing karaoke playlist. And he has an incredibly high standard. That is amazing. Incredibly high. Like I'll be like, ooh, this is a good song. We should add this. And he's like, no. Like, no, this is not upbeat enough. It's not fun. Like no one's going to like it. And I'm like, okay. So he takes it.
Oh my God, that warms my heart.
Pretty
Love
seriously.
Rob. Oh my gosh.
No, well, and so that's what I was going to say is my go-to as a true Oklahoma State girl is Friends in Low Places by Garth Brooks.
Yes, which we loved at your wedding.
Yeah, that was a fun one. But what's funny about that karaoke song is even though that's my karaoke song of choice, I do have a video of you and Rob singing it together. I guess I wasn't included in that decision, but you guys were singing that one and I got left out. But that's probably my go-to.
Okay, so Friends in Low Places.
Did I tell you I went to Garth Brooks a couple weeks ago?
No.
It was so
Where
fun.
did you see? Where was he?
He was in Dallas.
He was?
Yeah, it was at Jerry World.
I must have been traveling.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
probably was out.
Yeah.
But it was as
it
advertised. It was so fun.
I hear it. I hear nothing but great things.
He didn't give Oklahoma State a shout out, which upset me to say the least, but...
Is that his line? Is that where he? Yes, I thought so. Okay. I just had to, I don't know. I just had a
Him
flash.
and my dad were in college at the same time, and he was like singing in the back of bars, like no one knew who he was, and then now he's...
I know. I love that documentary.
I know.
It's the two-part. Yeah, that's such a great document. I love him. I think he will go down in history as one of the greatest performers of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's incredible.
It was a blast.
And I had friends who went and saw the Vegas stint that he did that was super personal. And I was so glad that they put that on TV to be able to watch him weave his life through song and just to be able to play that guitar. Did you see that show?
Yeah, the documentary?
No, the show. Did you get to see it in Vegas?
One?
No, I didn't either. I was a bum about that. But I'm so glad you went to that.
It was so fun.
Yay.
A blast.
Yay. Well, all right. And then relative to karaoke, occasionally you also share in common with Mac and I love for the theater.
You were gonna go toward this route.
So how many times have you seen Hamilton?
A few. Well, in person, I've seen it like 4 times, but then I've seen it
4 times.
It's my favorite, but fortunately, it's also one of Mackie's favorites. And so this is another one of those times where we're performing for no one because everyone's so bored with us. But like we're having a fun karaoke party at Danl's, and then suddenly the room goes silent. People are leaving, going downstairs to get another drink because Mackie and I have taken over singing Hamilton, which is mostly rap
but it's
like
also very
heavy.
Intimidating. Yeah, like you're good at it, and you kind of do it
Mackie
aggressively.
Really carries us. She actually told me I was the backup last time, and I think I
carried your own.
My backup.
You carried your own.
I think so.
Yeah, no, it was great. Well, I love so many things about you, Jordan, but definitely our love and passion for music, performing is
it's not even just music,
is up there. Yes.
Of course.
So, Jordan, thank you. This was I didn't know how this was going to play out, but hopefully it gave our listeners and the folks who submitted questions, and just really appreciate that. And again, and the person who gave that special quote at the end, that means a lot, because this is, we are coming on here with the intention to help.
Yeah.
And to also learn ourselves. We're in the midst of this journey, and there are a lot of things that we're still stumbling over as people who want to get better every day. So it means a lot. I hadn't looked in a while, and I just went and visited our ratings, and just appreciate the ratings that continue to come in. So thank you. If you enjoy what you're hearing here, certainly sharing it with someone else is the greatest compliment.
Yes.
But we do appreciate the ratings because that helps our content get found. And so just with that, we'll send you into the week with grateful hearts. So thank you all.
Thanks,
you guys. Jordan. As always, you can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Self-Smarter Podcast. You can also leave a rating or review if you enjoyed what you heard today. Not only does this mean so much to us, but it also helps other leaders and future leaders find our community. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us in becoming self-smarter. This podcast is produced by Snacks Media, and music is from a free platform. Well, that is until Brandy Carlisle reaches out to us to write the original score for our podcast. Friends, have a great rest of your day.